Welcome back to my channel. Today we are studying odontogenic tumors. We're going to start with a new topic. We are going to continue developmental anomalies as well and this together. So there was a classification given for odontogenic tumors. It was given and it was modified by WHO classification. This was the latest classification in 2022. So it classified odontogenic tumors as benign and malignant. Under benign, these were further classified into epithelial, mesenchymal, and mesenchymal. So epithelial will be these mixed, which is epithelial, and mesenchymal, which will be these, and mesenchymal will be all of these. So let me just read out to you. Today we are going to do this one in the benign epithelial odontogenic tumor, classifying epithelial odontogenic tumor. But you all should know the classification as it comes as a long note in your university exams. So there is benign epithelial odontogenic tumors, in which there is first adenomatoid odontogenic tumor, squamous odontogenic tumor, calcifying epithelial odontogenic tumor, ameloblastoma, which is unicystic, ameloblastoma, which is extraosseous or peripheral, ameloblastoma, which is the conventional, and adenoid ameloblastoma. Also there is metastasizing ameloblastoma. Remember, these are coming in the benign. Now there is benign mixed epithelial and mesenchymal odontogenic tumor. There is odontoma. There is primordial odontogenic tumor. There is ameloblastic fibroma. There is dentinogenic ghost cell tumor. Then there is benign mesenchymal odontogenic tumor. Here there is odontogenic fibroma, cementoblastoma, cemento-ossifying fibroma, and odontogenic myxoma. Then we come to malignant. In malignant odontogenic tumors, there is sclerosing odontogenic carcinoma, ameloblastic carcinoma. There is clear cell odontogenic carcinoma. There is ghost cell odontogenic carcinoma. There is primary intraosseous carcinoma. And then there is odontogenic carcinoma and odontogenic sarcoma. These were the malignant. Now we come to our main topic of today, which is calcifying epithelial odontogenic tumor, CEOT. The previous classification which I told you is important in the university exam point of view. Now you can on this topic you can either get a long note saying classify and write about this, or a short note on this topic as well. So what are the synonyms? The synonyms for CEOT is Pinbock tumor, because Pinbock was the first one to describe it in 1956. This date is not important, but you should remember it is also known as Pinbock tumor. That you can also get a short note saying Pinbock tumor, then you will wonder what kind of tumor it is. So you should remember it is calcifying epithelial odontogenic tumor, also known as Pinbock tumor. So it's very uncommon, that is, it comprises of less than 1% of odontogenic neoplasm. As you know, we are learning it under benign and epithelial in origin. Therefore, it is benign and epithelial in origin. No need to think so much. What is the etiology? Etiology remains enigmatic, but there are some schools of thought, and Pinbock suggested that it was from the REE, that is the reduced enamel epithelium, but now it is believed that there is other reminiscent of the sequestrated cells in the stratum intermedium layer of the enamel organ. So first it was said to be reduced enamel epithelium, but now it is believed to be stratum intermedium. Why do you think so? Why it is changed now? So it is changed now because there is morphologic similarity between the tumor cells and the cells of stratum medium, and a high activity of alkaline phosphatase and adenosine triphosphatase. So these activities were also shown by stratum intermedium. I'll show you the functions of stratum intermedium in a while. But there is also one more thing to remember, that and there are these cells. There is amyloid deposition also in the tumor. You know what is amyloid, right? You have learned in pathology in the second year. Not formed proteins, amyloid. So these are deposited with the tumor. So it is said that it's a immunologic response to stratum intermedium cells. So since they are found in places where they should not be found, immune response goes for a deposition of amyloid with the tumor. So you remember this, right, in your first year. So here you see your stratum intermedium. These are the stratum intermedium cell just beneath the stellate reticulum and ameloblast. You will see your stratum intermediate cells just squamous in time. So in this tumor, this stratum intermedium cells are similar to the tumor cells, is what they are saying. So this stratum intermedium was important. You can just read this because they were giving nutrient transport to the ameloblast. Then this is important, signaling molecule production. It was thought to produce the signaling molecule sonic hedgehog, SHH, remember this, sonic hedgehog, which may be involved in orchestrating the progression of odontogeny. It is important in the tooth development. Sonic hedgehog is important in the tooth development, remember this one. Then there is for structural support, then there is alkaline phosphate activity, which is same as in the tumor as well. And then there is gap junction desmosome. Stratum intermedium and ameloblast have multiple desmosome and gap junction. Then there is stem cell niche, epithelial part of the adult stem cell niche, and not signal. These are just the functions, but in this function, see this alkaline phosphatase activity. And then there is this, which will talk in the next school of thought, that is sonic hedgehog. That's why I have given the functions right here. You can take a screenshot if you all want. Not important to write in the short note, but just given here. So next was some hypothesis say the tumor could arise. These are the schools of thought. First we thought it was of REE, pin box head, but then he suggested that it was of SIS, stratum intermedium, because the similarities, morphogenic similarities were similar, plus they were alkaline phosphatase were releasing, and as well adenosine phosphate activity was there, right? Here we have it. Adenosine triphosphate activity, and plus there was amyloid deposition. Now we come to the second theory, which says that remnants of primitive dental lamina. It comes from remnants of, that is, epithelial cells. But this was discarded because there was cyst present in other areas than normal position of the tooth. So how there will be a remnant over there, and also unerupted tooth position. So this was declined. Then there is mutation of the PTCH1 gene. So in the mutation of the PTCH1 gene indicated mutation of various proteins in SHS, sonic hedgehog pathway, which is involved in the odontogenesis. So sonic hedgehog pathway regulates embryonic development, participate in odontogenic process through mediation of epithelial and mesenchymal introduction. So it was said mutation in PTCH1 gene did some changes in the proteins of sonic hedgehog pathway, which I told you similar is there in stratum intermedium, which created this tumor. What are the clinical features? So it is most frequently seen in middle age, that is 40 years of age. Mandible is most commonly affected. Mandible to maxilla ratio is 2:1. The prevalence here is molar is 3 times more affected than the premolar. Mostly asymptomatic it is, and painless swelling. 52% reported cases have associated with impacted teeth and unerupted teeth. I will just show you. Like this, it is seen in radiograph. So here is just a chart which shows you, gives you the distribution. So you see in the mandible, it is mandibular molars, it's 57%, and in the maxillary it is 21%. Now don't need to remember, I am just giving this you so that you all can remember it is more found in maxilla than in, mandible than in maxilla. Also it is more in the predominant in the premolar region than the molar region, than the anterior and the premolar region. And this is for you to remember that you can see the calcifications over here, and then it's associated with impacted tooth. But here it is not associated with impacted, here it is with carial tooth. Extraosseous variant. Extraosseous it is. Here you can see this is like extraosseous outside the bone. So mean age is 35 years in here, and the histology is identical to intraosseous and associated with impacted tooth and initial radiolucent mimicking to dentinogenesis cyst. So you can have a differential diagnosis to be dentinogenesis cyst because it looks like dentinogenesis tooth. There is honeycomb appearance and there is aggressive lesion. So first it looks like dentinogenesis cyst, and it has honeycomb appearance when it is an aggressive lesion. These are all clinical features which I am talking about. Now you come to radiographic features. So initial stage, there are 3 stages in this: initial stage, second stage, and final phase. Final stage. So initial stage, the central lesion is totally radiolucent, and it stimulates dentinogenesis because of its relation with impacted tooth. So you can totally see that this is a dentinogenesis. We will cover dentinogenesis also in our channel, but for you to think, this is how dentinogenesis looks like this. There is an envelope which envelopes the crown, or either from the root also, but you will see that the origin of the cyst will be from the attachment of the crown. So it will look like a dentinogenesis. So you can misdiagnose it as dentinogenesis. Then is the second phase, in which there will be calcification start to appear. There will be calcification appearing little. So you will not consider it to be dentinogenesis. Now you have to consider a CEOT, calcifying epithelial odontogenic happened. Tumor. You will have to consider it like this. Then the last stage is the honeycomb appearance. You all can see this photo. This is a mandible which is affected, and you can see how much the tumor has spread. And it looks like a honeycomb also. Moving on, talking about the lesion. So lesion is usually well circumscribed. So you have margins. Diffuse, could be diffuse also, combined patterns with small irregular bony trabeculae traversing the radiolucent area in many directions. So there is well circumscribed diffuse, there will be combined patterns in which small irregular bony trabeculae, they traverse inside the radiolucent area where there is radiolucent and make it a little bit radiopaque. Scattered flecks of calcification can also be seen throughout the radiolucency, and it is known as driven snow appearance. So if you see in this picture, there will be scattered appearance. So it is also known as driven snow appearance, like this over here. It is also a characteristic of CEOT. So if you have this in your radiograph, obviously you have CEOT, driven snow appearance. So it is scattered flecks of calcification throughout the radiolucency. Causes expansion. So what does it cause? It causes expansion of and thinning of the buccal and lingual cortical plates. So the buccal and your lingual cortical plates, they swell. This thing swells inside. So these expand and they thin off. Okay. If you check the MRI, Now MRI as T1 weighted MRI and T2 weighted MRI. In T1 weighted MRI images, CEOTs are characterized by low signal intensity, appearing dark compared to surrounding tissues. Sorry. So T1 is, in T1 it is dark, you can see. So I'll tell you why you can see dark in T1. And on T2 MRI, these show mixed hyper intense, that is both signals, both mixed hyper intense, you remember, and here you remember low intensity and dark compared to surrounding tissues. On T2 weighted image, these are mixed hyper intense bright signal with areas of high and low signal intensities. Just remember mixed hyper intense. So what is T1 weighted? This is not important, but I'm just telling for your sake. T1 weighted MRI is image emphasize T1 relaxation time of tissues. That is which is the time it takes for proteins to return to their equilibrium state after being distributed by the radio frequency pulse. So here the relaxation time of the tissues T1 is short. In T1 it is short and in T2 it is long enough. In T1 there will be tissues like fat, and in T1 weighted images, while tissues with longer T1 relaxation time like water appear dark. So in T1 you will see that when there are longer relaxation time will be the time needed for a tissue to come back to its equilibrium position. Okay, and in T1 it is T1 of water will be long, so it will appear dark in T1 weighted images. In T2 weighted images, water will appear light because T2 weighted images emphasize the T2 relaxation time, and which is the time taken for protons to lose phase concurrence. This is not very important, just remember. In highlight, so T1 is highlighting the anatomy and the fat, and T2 is highlighting the fluid and abnormalities. So T1 anatomy and fat, and T2 fluid and abnormalities. So this is what you see. You will just remember in T1 you see dark compared to the surrounding, and in T2 you will see dark compared to the surrounding. You know right, myeloid tissues and all are there. Myeloid is there present in this tumor, and in T2 you will see areas of low and high signal. You don't need to write this everything. Just remember T1 weighted MRI, T2 weighted MRI. In T1 there will be low signal intensity, characterized by low signal intensity or dark compared to the background, appearing dark compared to the backgrounds. In T1 weighted MRI, dark compared to the backgrounds. In M2 weighted MRI, T2 weighted MRI, there is mixed hyper intense signal. Enough. This is what you have to write. From here this, and from here only this. Then there is histologic features. It is composed of polyhedral cells. You will see there are a lot of polyhedral cells. Occasionally cords and rods mimicking adenocarcinoma. So there will be occasional rods and cords which will be mimicking adenocarcinoma. Distinct cellular borders with prominent intercellular bridges, intracytoplasmic tonofilaments, hemidosmosomes seen in epidermis. So there will be distinct cellular border. So you will have your polyhedral cells which have distinct cellular border, and in between you will have all your cytoplasmic things such as bridges, intracellular plasmic tonofilaments, as hemidesmosomes, etc. How will be the nuclei? The nuclei will be pleomorphic. Remember, nuclei is pleomorphic and can be of different shape, and there will be hyperchromatic, can be maybe multinucleated. In some regions cellular abnormalities or monomorphic innocuous monomorphic and innocuous appearing. Monomorphic is same kind of same cell appearing again and again. So in some regions, so remember the histological features. Again, I'll say composed of polyhedral cells, closely packed like islands. They are packed into occasionally cords or rods. Nuclei is pleomorphic, hypochromatic, and in some it may be monomorphic. In clear cell variant, this is another variant which is present, in which the cells have vacuolated cytoplasm rather than eosinophilic. So here you will see eosinophilic, but in these there will be vacuolated appearance. They may be round or oval and central, or they are flattened against the cell membrane. These in the, what is this? Nucleus. Nucleus may be round or oval and in the center, or flattened against the cell membrane. What will be the differential diagnosis? In primary, you can say that it is mucoepidermoid carcinoma, and in metastatic, you can say it is hypernephroma. May exhibit clear cell. Both of these may exhibit clear cell. Now the homogeneous eosinophilic substance, which we thought of amyloid, stains is amyloid also with Congo red. So you can see this, and theoflavin T. It also shows apple green birefringence when viewed with polarized light. The amyloid shows this. So you can see the calcified epithelioid odontogenic tumor with Congo red staining. Pools of amyloid exhibit apple green birefringence when viewed with polarized light. And also shows fluorescence under UV light with thioflavin T. Now we come on to the calcification. How does the calcification look? Presence of calcification. Some tissues in large amount form Lisgang's ring. So these are the Lisgang's ring. You can see the calcification present, dark pink or dark purple. So this is a identifying feature of the CEOT. Now we go to treatment and prognosis. Treatment, this is for small intrabony lesion and large. First we go for the small one. The small one, you do enucleation or curettage. Enucleation is followed by a judicious thin layer of the bone adjacent to tumor. You don't cut the mandible in half or something. You just enucleate where the tumor is present. You will take something like a spoon excavator and we will learn about enucleation and curettage in surgery. In your general surgery, you will be learning about these. And in larger, which is more than 4 cm, you will have segmental resection such as partial or hemimandibular or hemimaxillary. So this is before progressing. And the recurrent rate that the tumor will reappear is 10 to 20%. Then we are finished with the Pinbock tumor. We will start with another topic the next time. Till then, thank you for your patient listening if you are listening. Bye bye.